Starting off this countdown, we have the Selma Mansion. This 20-room mansion was constructed back in 1902 and was known for hosting extravagant balls and dinner parties. Now it's known for being home to multiple ghosts. The home was originally owned by a man named Elijah Brokenborough. Honestly, that sounds like a name of someone who would own a mansion. Elijah Brokenborough. He then gave the property to his daughter, who lived in the mansion until she died in 1970. Then the house kept getting passed around until it was abandoned in the early 2000s. Now the home has been ransacked. The windows are all broken, the inside is vandalized, but be careful if you do dare to trespass. You may come in contact with a couple of ghosts who are said to roam the rooms and corridors at night. In our 9th spot, we have the Haught Mansion. Much about the history of this house remains a secret. However, it's rumored that the home was a brothel back in the 1940s. Years later, a number of dead bodies were found in the mansion's basement. The torsos and chests of the victims had perfect round circles on them. However, we don't really know if that is the truth. Other people claim that a man named Henry Glover owned the house back in 1892. However, he died in the house the morning after just moving in. To this day, it remains a very mysterious and creepy house. Moving on, at number 8, we have the Temple Street Mansion. Located in East Cleveland, this mansion, located on Temple Street, is the home to numerous tragedies. In 1942, it said that 3 priests were found murdered in the mansion. Then in 2013, the mansion was the dumping ground of a serial killer. 3 women were found dead in the house, wrapped in plastic bags. Now it's said that it's haunted by several spirits. In fact, neighbors from across the street have seen and heard paranormal activity coming from the house. In our 7th spot, we have the Mudhouse Mansion. Located in Fairfield County, Ohio, this mansion remains a huge mystery. Not a lot of people know the history of this house. It's thought that it was built in the 1840s, 50s, 70s, or the 1900s. No one truly knows. Because of the lack of history surrounding this mansion, people have made up their own. Legend goes that this was the original home of Bloody Mary, who still haunts the place. Whereas others believe that government officials used the house to hide captives after the Civil War. But apparently, one managed to escape and murdered the official and his family. The house was demolished in 2015 after not being occupied since the 1930s. Making our way down the list, number 6, we have the John List House. This 19-room mansion located in New Jersey is another mansion filled with tragedies. In November of 1971, the owner, John List, killed his entire family. He then gathered all of their bodies, except his mother's, and lined them up in the ballroom. He turned on the radio to a religious station, turned on all the lights, cut his face out from the family photos, and then fled. The bodies weren't discovered until a month later, after friends and family were wondering where they were. As for John List, well, he fled to Denver and changed his name. However, he was caught and arrested in 1989. But he never admitted to the crimes. The home remained abandoned for years until an arsonist burnt it down in 1974. As a result, a new identical mansion was built in the exact spot. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Ohio Mystery Mansion. Unlike the other mansions, this home's identity was never mentioned. It was explored by the well-known American photographer Seth Lawless. He claims that when he entered the mansion, he saw eerie, fresh footprints leading into the house. Not only that, but the bathroom in the house had blood on the walls. In the bathtub, he found a dead dog. He also heard scratching noises and strange whispers coming from one of the rooms. To make things worse, in one of the rooms, there was a display of mannequin heads and metal tools. That's weird interior decorating. The neighbor claims to hear noises coming from the house all the time. But honestly, I just wish we knew more about this house and its history. Coming in at number 4, we have Villa de Vecchi. Another creepy mansion with an even creepier backstory. The Villa de Vecchi in Italy, owned by Count Felix de Vecchi, was commissioned to be built in the 19th century. However, the architect died a year before he completed the project, which put a supposed curse on the property. Shortly after the family moved in, Count Felix discovered that his wife had been murdered. As a result, he ended up taking his own life. The villa was then passed to his brother, who lived there until World War II. It's been vacant since 1960. The spookiest part? In 2002, an avalanche wiped out all the houses in the area, except this one. Moving on at number 3, we have the Halcyon Hall. Sorry, Halcyon Hall. Located in Millbrook, New York, the mansion was first built as a hotel in the 1890s. From there, it was transformed into an all-girls school before being shut down in 1978. Now, this mansion is said to be home to multiple ghosts. Once, a carpenter working there said they heard moans and cries coming from the basement. Other people said a ghost of a woman would visit them in their sleep. The 1960s was when the most paranormal activity happened. Objects would disappear only to reappear later on, or would move on their own. Residents would also often see a bald, chubby man in a brown suit wandering around and sitting in their chairs. In our second spot, we have the Liu family mansion. Located in Taiwan, the Liu family mansion was built in 1929 for a businessman and his family of 8. However, in the 1950s, the family abruptly fled from their home. The reason for leaving was unclear. However, some think it's because the house is haunted. Apparently, back in the day, the mansion's maid fell in love with the rich owner. They were having an affair, and when the secret got out, she drowned herself in the well. Now it's said that bad luck will follow any of the new residents of the house. Whereas other people think that the property is haunted by Japanese soldiers who died in battles on the grounds. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Franklin Castle. The Franklin Castle, otherwise known as the Tiedemann House, is a mansion located in Cleveland, Ohio. Built between 1881 to 1883, this mansion was first home to Hans Tiedemann, his wife, and kids. This mansion has 4 stories, more than 20 rooms, and 80 windows. That just called me broke. However, this mansion is said to be one of the most haunted houses in the US. Apparently, a bunch of murders have occurred in this house. Slowly, Tiedemann's family started to pass away, and people thought that he was behind their death. In 1968, the mansion was sold to James Romano and his family. That's when the hauntings began. The Romano family reported several encounters with ghosts. They even attempted exorcisms and had a ghost hunting group investigate the property. In 1975, human bones were found in the closet. It's thought that maybe they were planted there as a publicity stunt, but we still don't know.
Coming in at number 10, we have Montclair House at 44 Pleasant Avenue, Montclair. An eye-catching 6-bedroom, 3,900 square feet house in New Jersey is located on 3 acres of land, is more than 100 years old, and preserved by the Historic Preservation Commission given its historic significance. And it's on the market right now. Well, yeah, we're already talking about that $10 house. This one's listed for $10, not including the land though. The land has been commissioned for the site of 8 houses to be built around the historic house. Thus, the buyer of this $10 mansion will have to agree to move the house at their own expense. So yeah, there's always a catch-22. And also there's a lot of renovations that's needed in this house. All that along with preserving the historic elements inside the house, but removing the toxic lead paint and also the asbestos by law. No wonder no one wants to inherit this mess on purpose. So yeah, not even $10 are worth it. You can even pay me $10 to deal with all of that. At number 9, located on a tree-lined dead-end street in Nyack, New York, one Lovetto Place is famous as its past celebrity owners, including director Adam Brooks, singer Ingrid Michaelson, and rapper Mattis Yahoo. The spacious home features 5 bedrooms, 5 baths, and its walking distance to downtown areas. The 1890 Queen Anne Victorian also boasts arched doorways, stained glass, and an in-ground saltwater pool, and views of the Hudson River for almost every room. So what seems to be the problem? Well, the home gained notoriety when the New York Supreme Court declared it legally haunted in 1991. Is this real life right now? I never knew a Supreme Court, like a judge, can deem a house legally haunted. Absolutely insane. The ruling was a result of the Zombovsky W. Ackley case, in which homebuyer Jeffrey Zombovsky sued seller Helen Ackley over not disclosing the haunting prior to the sale and fought sought to rescind his offer. Well, the court ruled in Sobofsky's favor, and the home made history. Absolutely insane. While there have not been any reported hauntings in recent years, perhaps you'll experience the paranormal activities the Aucklands publicly claimed to have had happened decades ago. Before selling the home, Helen and her family had reported multiple incidents of poltergeist from the Revolutionary War, shaking the bed, slamming doors, and leaving gifts. Okay, leaving gifts ain't the worst thing unless I don't know what the gifts are. Up next, number 8, in 1875, a wealthy chair manufacturer named Sylvester K. Pierce designed and built a magnificent Victorian home. This beautiful Massachusetts home boasts 10 beds, 2.5 baths, which is like a half a bathroom, so I think it's like no shower, 11-foot ceilings, marble fireplaces, and all original windows, doorknobs, hinges, and floors. So with all of those exquisite details, how could the owner possibly ask for just $329,000? That's roughly the same price as an average 3-bedroom home. So why is this beautiful mansion such a steal? Well, you guessed it, it's got a haunting history. Over the years, in the hands of many owners, 7 individual deaths have been documented in the house, including a strangled prostitute. The house experiences so much paranormal activities. It's actually been investigated by TV shows like Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, My Ghost Story, and also in the show Top 10 Most Haunted Places in New England. So who's still roaming the halls of this gorgeous mansion? Well, some say they've seen figures of like a busy servant girl, others have seen a little boy who stares longingly out the front window, and to some they see a sad woman. I don't know about you guys, but ghosts are one thing, but creepy children ghosts, well, it's a hard no for me. Coming in hot at number 7 on this list, some homes aren't necessarily haunted like most on this list, but this next mansion just won't sell. 50 Cent, you know, the rapper 50 Cent, who has he been, where's he been these days? Is he still rapping, making music? I don't know where this guy is. Maybe he became $1. Well, he listed his 50,000 square foot home in Farmington, Connecticut for $18.5 million in 2015. In the fall of that year, he lowered his price from $18.5 million to $8.5 million. How do you slash a home by $10 million? Was it overpriced by $10 million? Or is he just taking a huge loss of $10 million? And this is after he filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And then it didn't sell at that point, so he lowered it again, starting at $18.5 million to $5.995 million in 2016. And the same situation, it's still on the market. So if you guys are looking to buy a $6 million home owned by 50 Cent, it's available for you right now, but you gotta move to like Connecticut. This next home is totally over the top with 21 bedrooms, 25 bathrooms in case you never know at any moment when you gotta use the bathroom. And then there's like bam, 10 on the floor you're on. There's an indoor pool, a hot tub, a substantial nightclub, because why not make money in the place you live? Let's bring all these like crazies into your house and hookers, and let's just party it out. There's an indoor court so you can hoop. There's multiple game rooms, a green screen room for us, we can go filming. So all the things I'm naming right now is all in 50 Cent's house that just won't sell. Alright, let's move on from that. Number 6, which is bringing you similar fashion to number 7, former President Barack Obama. Hey, if Obama's selling his house, I want to buy it. I want to see what secret rooms he's got going on, especially because Trump is president. Obama probably has like a bunker underground, and just in case. You know, there was lots of tension between Trump and North Korea, and missiles and nuclear wars. So you know when you're buying this house, you're also buying a hidden bunker. Well, former President Barack Obama and his family rented this sprawling 7,000 square foot mansion in Martha's Vineyard for an entire summer in 2013, but that seems not to have made the house any easier to sell. So the house listed it in 2015 for $22.5 million. Just 3 months later, the house had already chopped its price by 15%. They're pulling at 50 Cent in this one. So now the house is on the market for $17.75 million. I mean, I get the hefty price tag, but who wouldn't want to live in a former president vacation home? And then imagine it's like 2 months out of the year you have to book a hotel because Obama needs your house. He's got to enjoy the summer. Next up, number 5, we got Mr. Kreischer's mansion. The magnificent Victorian mansion just outside of New York had a replica which was a stone's throws away. However, it was destroyed during the Great Depression. Generally, beautiful houses like this don't stay long in the market, but for this house, well, you guys know this list. This house is just not able to sell. It is said to be one of the most haunted places in the city. Firstly, Krishna's son committed suicide, which doesn't help the case of this house. There was rumors of voices. There's appearances and other paranormal phenomenon took hold of them. Do you guys think that you can live there? If you were paid $1 million to live in the world's most haunted house, with the chance of you dying, would you guys do it? Number 4, we have Shreppy Mansion, Lake Forest, Illinois. This place, like mansion, is spread over 21,000 square feet. I mean, I would get lost in that. You can put a corn maze inside of your house and still get lost. And even though this house has 12 bathrooms, I'd be too lost to even find one of them. There's 11 baths, 400 feet of beach, which is absolutely insane. So this house has hosted a number of royals and nobles, including the Duke of Windsor, in its 100-year-long existence. After being expensively and elaborately restored, this royal mansion was put on the market for 18 million USD American dollars, which is like $100 million Canadian, because yeah, your guys' dollar is a lot better than ours. But then after they had to slice the price, they slashed it in half, like a 50% discount. It's like going to your realtor and he gives you a 50% code to use on a freaking house. Well, this was actually over a period of 10 years. The house just kept getting reduced and reduced and reduced, but still no one wants to buy it. Proper real estate and consistent data are available mostly for the mansions in the US, and they are on the market too. Although there are plenty of haunted houses and places in European countries, most of them are still owned by royals or the government, and they're not for sale. Many of these houses in this list are open for viewing, as the realtors can't wait to sell these cursed but gorgeous rejects. And if you're a realtor, do you have to say someone died in this house, or can you kind of like... Okay, next, at number 3, we have this next scary mansion that no one wants to buy. We're talking about the Pillars Estate, Albion, located in New York. So a lot of these are in the States. Is there anything up here in Canada that's haunted that no one wants to buy, that's underpriced, that I might consider? Well, another historic mansion in New York. Well, this is 7,200 square feet. The Greek style house has 6 bedrooms, 3 baths, 5 fireplaces, because I guess the winters in New York is very cold, a parlor, a library, and even a ballroom. So you can have your own wedding in your own house in the ballroom. It is a classic specimen of a mansion, and yet it was put on sale for $1 million. Again, USD, so like 10 million Canadian. But all jokes aside, come 2017, the price fell to half of the original without any buyers, despite the expensive renovations that made it livable. The reason behind this cannot get any more classy, given its style. The owners and the workers claim to have seen or heard humans around this Victorian mansions. Yeah, they heard a lot of ghosts, particularly a child from a former lady of the house. Again, the child ghost things, yeah, from the words of Simon Cowell, it's a no for me. Number 2 on this list, Los Feliz Murder House. I mean, is that the advertisement? Hey, house on sale, $10 million, Los Feliz Murder House. Would you like to buy it, sir? Yeah, if the price is right. 15 million? You got it. On December 6, 1959, cardiologist Harold Perelson murdered his wife with a hammer, then killed himself in this beautiful Spanish rivalry home in Los Feliz, California. After the infamous murder-suicide, the home was sold but never lived in. In fact, the interior wasn't cleaned out for years following the incident, preserving that night in time and adding to the home creepy aesthetics. Trespassers in the past have reported finding old magazines and books, canned foods, and cleaning supplies. Rumor has it there was even unwrapped presents sitting under the Christmas tree standing in one of the rooms. And the moment you guys have all been waiting for, number 1 on this list, the Dakota New Yorkers, well, they might recognize this Central Park apartment building's iconic mix of architectural styles, while Beatle fans recognize it because of its history. Not only was the house we're talking about right now was the residence of John Lennon and also Yoko Ono, it was also a place where Lennon was fatally shot by Mark David Chapman in 1980. Throughout the building existence, residents and staff have claimed to see the ghost of a little girl and a crying lady and Lennon himself. However, supposed hauntings and an alleged curse won't keep buyers away from the luxurious 9-room apartment for sale inside the building. The residence feature 9-foot ceilings, original moldings, and city views from floor to ceiling windows. You may also have a famous neighbor as well. Past residents include Judy Garland and Bono. Yoko Ono still lives in the Dakota today, but even if you love the apartment and can afford the $10 million price tag, well, there's one thing keeping you from moving in. the Co-op Board. Upon receiving your application and background check results, this group of people chooses whether you live in the Dakota or not, and they are apparently scarier than any spirit hauntings the building. The board has a history of being choosy and has rejected such celebrities like Madonna, Alex Rodriguez, Cher, and Billy Joel. And they'll probably reject me as well.
Starting off this countdown, we have the bleeding painting. What I find crazy is when mansions are left still fully furnished. Like, are they just that rich that they can afford to leave all their stuff behind and just completely refurnish their new mansion? Probably. So this next urban explorer entered an abandoned mansion that still had big, elaborate, expensive looking paintings hanging on the walls. But something was off about the paintings. Some of them looked like blood was dripping from their eyes. On some paintings, there was red liquid leaking from their eyes. The thing was, when they touched the liquid, it was wet. Meaning someone just freshly did that. Or somehow the paintings are perpetually wet. Or actually crying blood. I don't know, but I'm certain that that house is probably cursed. In our 9th spot, we have the dummy heads. While exploring an $8 million abandoned mansion, urban explorer, photographer, and YouTuber Freaktography came across some very creepy finds. So the mansion he was exploring was once owned by a rich dentist. Now it's extremely overgrown and rotting. Now inside the basement were multiple dental mummies. Just take a look at them and tell me that those aren't creepy. So the dummies were made to look as realistic as possible and even had human teeth on the inside. But now they have turned yellow and are rotting. Then you have the shelf of other dummies that look like some weird torture masks. I don't know, but I don't like those dummies at all. But the worst thing in this house was that in one of the bathrooms they had 2 toilets facing each other. Whoa, like I'm trying to do my business in peace. I'm not trying to lock eyes with someone else as I'm squeezing out my poopski potato. Seriously, who designed that? In our 8th spot, we have the Room of Dolls. Who here gets creeped out by dolls? I do. Specifically the old vintage looking ones. I swear they were designed to look creepy. Well, in this next abandoned mansion, an urban explorer found a room filled with dolls. No furniture, no decorations, only dolls. Dolls lined on shelves, dolls lined on the floor, just dolls everywhere. Obviously they were creeped out, so they decided to check out the other rooms. But when doing so, they heard a clunk come from the doll room. When they went back in, they saw that a doll had fallen from the shelf and it was now near the middle of the room, seated upright, just staring at them. That's when they decided to leave the house. Good call. That was probably cursed by Annabelle or something. Moving on to number 7, we have the groaning. Reddit user Never Enough Muppets shared their experience exploring an abandoned mansion in their hometown in Long Island. When he first entered the house, he was amazed. It was filled with late 60s, early 70s furniture along with a bunch of old kid toys and antiques. But on the 3rd floor, that's when things got weird. As he started walking down the warped hallway, a man popped out of a room and started dragging himself down the hallway after him. The guy was letting out big groans as he chased after him. Okay, hopefully that the guy wasn't sick and in need of help and was like, please help me come back. Hopefully it was just like a scare tactic to chase away any trespassers. Hopefully he's doing alright. In our 6th spot, we have the illegal clinic. While renovating an old abandoned mansion, the workers discovered the dark truth behind it. In the basement, they found 2 jars of formaldehyde. Each jar had a preserved fetus in it. They went on to do research on the mansion and discovered it was once an illegal abortion clinic. Yikes. I would not be buying that mansion. See, that's why you need to always know the history of your house before you buy it. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the cursed mansion. Honestly, all of these mansions are probably cursed, but chances are this one is the most cursed of them all. So while exploring an abandoned mansion, this urban explorer discovered some loose floorboards in a crawl space. He pried the floorboards off and found a Ouija board had been placed in there upside down. The board had scratch marks all over it. Some believe that whoever hid it did so to protect themselves. They concealed it and placed it upside down to break contact with an entity that was probably messing with them. And And this isn't the first time someone has found a Ouija board hidden in a house placed upside down. In 2016, a construction worker found one in the walls of a house that he was working on. Creepy. In our fourth spot, we have the crime scene. Urban explorer photography was exploring an old abandoned mansion when he realized that the house was a murder scene. Parts of the house were covered in crime scene tape. It makes you wonder what went down in that house. Maybe it was the site of a gruesome murder and that's why the family had to pack up and leave. I wish we had more information. I just want to know what happened there. Coming in at number 3, we have the asbestos. Reddit user O shared their experience exploring an abandoned Victorian mansion that was then converted into a mental asylum. So right off the bat, you know it's gonna be creepy. The house had its bedrooms converted into patient rooms, but it's also pretty cool because they had a big ballroom and an indoor fountain. However, after being there for a while, they saw a sign that read, "Warning, extremely high levels of asbestos in this area. Respirators must be worn. If you have been exposed, go to the nearest hospital immediately." Well, that sucks. I feel like that sign would have been much better on the front of the house so that people can see it before they enter. Moving on at number 2, we have the morgue. Some houses have really cool basements. Maybe it's turned into a home theater or an awesome arcade. That would be amazing. But in this case, this basement was a full-on morgue. In the morgue, there were a bunch of tools and body trays left out. Both were stained with blood. The creepiest part? While exploring the morgue, one of the lockers, aka the holding cell for the bodies, you know when you see in the movie where they slide it out, yeah, one of those, the doors just open on its own. See, that's why you don't have a morgue in your house. You're dealing with dead bodies and the spirit of the dead could literally get attached to you or your house. Then you're out there living with countless ghosts. And in our number 1 spot, we have the bloodstains. This next urban explorer broke into a mansion that was abandoned after the family packed up their stuff and left quickly during the night. Where was the mansion? Hill House? Residents of the area never knew why the family left all of a sudden and without any notice. So this explorer went there to get some answers. And he may have found the answer in one of the bedrooms. In the master bedroom, the mattress, sheets, and comforter were all stained with dry blood. And it wasn't just a couple of spots of blood. No, it was a lot. So I'm thinking someone got killed there and they fled so that no one could find out about the crime.
Coming in at number 10, we have the Tower of London. Ah, the Tower of London, the scene of much betrayal and bloodshed. There aren't enough hours in the day to list the amount of ghosts said to haunt this royal fortress on the banks of the River Thames. The tower has been the prison and death spot of some of the most famous people in British history, including Henry VIII's wife Anne Boleyn. She is said to haunt the tower to this day. Also haunting the tower are 2 young princes who were killed on the orders of Richard III. The 2 youngsters appear most frequently to other children who visit the tower on school trips. The most dramatic ghost of the Tower of London though is the ghost of the Countess of Salisbury. Now she had a very grisly death there indeed. She broke free of her executioner who instead of chopping off her head, hacked her up with an axe. She can be heard screaming and running riot in the castle's grounds. One tourist had a turn when she was on a guided tour of the tower. In one of the rooms used to imprison the former enemies of the crown, she simply had a breakdown. She started screaming, "There's so much suffering." Apparently the suffering can still be felt in the grounds today. On top of the human spectres, the tower is also said to be haunted by the ghost of a bear. A bear! Coming in at number 9, we have Screaming Montebello Castle. Montebello Castle is located in Switzerland near the border with Italy. Look at it, it is absolutely stunning. This castle was built in the 14th century, so it's had 6 centuries of history. The most enduring tale from the castle is the story of Gwendolina, an albino girl who lived in the castle and was kept there. Being an albino was socially scorned back in those days, and her mother tried to dye her hair with natural herbs to try and give it some colour, but it ended up turning blue, which earned her the nickname of Azurina. She was forbidden to leave the castle and her father was ashamed of her her. One day, under very mysterious circumstances, the girl was killed. Stories do vary as to exactly how, but they all involve her letting out a string of blood-curdling screams. Azarina died on the 21st of June 1375, but her screams can still be heard in the castle today, and are loudest during the summer solstice, the anniversary of her death. Coming in at number 8, we have Himeji Castle in Japan. Himeji Castle was built in the 1300s in a hilltop in the Hygo Prefect. Now, the beautiful castle is home to a dark legend and a wronged ghostly presence. The story goes that once a servant by the name of Okiku was accused of losing valuable crockery, and the loss of the dishes seemed to be reason enough for her to take her life. Okiku was dragged from the kitchen and thrown into a well in the castle grounds, where she died. It is said that her ghost still haunts the castle today. She is said to haunt both the grounds and the kitchen. She can be heard counting dishes while sobbing, and then when she gets to 9, she runs shrieking and shrieking back into the well. Coming in at number 7, we have the ghost of Tuileries Palace. There is a ghost of a red man spotted outside Tuileries Palace in Paris. Now, he was said to be a local butcher. Others say he was a henchman of the 16th century Queen Catherine de Medici. Both legends agree that his name was Jean and that the Queen had him killed because he held way too many secrets. A while after his death, a man was spotted in blood-red attire wandering the gardens. One man who spoke to his ghost, Unveil, reported that Jean swore vengeance to the Queen and the crown, and the Kingdom of France. Aristocrats of the palace thought that he was a sign of bad luck to come. Indeed, Marie Antoinette supposedly saw his ghost shortly before meeting the guillotine herself. Napoleon, it was said, quite liked him and would talk to him about war strategy. Of course. Those visiting the old palace today occasionally do spot the man in red, which is a bad thing indeed, because it's supposed to be that, you know, he's a sign of bad things to come. Coming into number 6, we have the Witches of Musham Castle. Unternburg, Austria held its own gruesome witch trials between 1675 and 1690. These were the Zuberjackal trials, during which 139 people were killed. Now, strangely for witch trials, most of those killed were men, 113 men to be precise. Those killed on suspicion of witchcraft were tortured first, and then afterwards they were burned alive, or hung, or decapitated. As you can imagine, as the scene of hundreds of brutal and unjust murders, the building carries a certain tension. And you can feel that tension even if you don't believe in ghosts, but if you do, it is thought that the spirits of the wronged plague the castle, crying and shrieking at night. One of the murdered was a 10-year-old orphan who was killed simply for being homeless. His cries are said to be the loudest. Beyond the story of the witch trials, there is a tale of werewolves in the palace. Now, these stem back to the 1800s. Back then, deer and cattle began showing up dead around the grounds. Suspected werewolves were taken to the dungeon and killed. Some say they hear the growls of torture victims emanating from the dungeons at night even today. Coming in at number 5, we have Frankenstein's Castle. You may recognize the name Frankenstein. Well, it is thought that this castle inspired Mary Shelley's famous novel of the same name. The castle is in the Darmstadt district of Germany, in the Hesse region. The 13th century castle is thought to be haunted by the ghost of Johann Conrad Dippel, a bad man. Dippel was a physician and alchemist who wanted to resurrect the dead. He would rob graves by night and then cut up the bodies and use them in his elixirs and potions. It seems that he wanted to find a potion to resurrect the dead and also to generate immortality. In the end, drinking one of his concoctions actually killed him. It is thought that his spirits haunts the Frankenstein castle today, and so too do the many spirits of his unearthed experiments. He is most frequently spotted between Christmas and New Year sitting on the chapel roof. Coming in at number 4, we have the hellish Hoska Castle in the Czech Republic. Hoska Castle is a Gothic fort in the middle of nowhere, and it is said that even to this day, animals stay away from the castle walls. They prefer to be out in the wild rather than take shelter in the structure. In folklore, the castle is known as the gateway to hell. Legend has it that demons and dragons have been spotted pouring forth from the castle's vile mouth. Indeed, some even say that they've seen ghouls there today. To make matters worse, the castle was taken over by the Nazis during World War II. It is said that they tortured hundreds of people there, as well as conducting some really inhumane medical tests. Something that the Nazis were drawn to the building as it was so hellish, others say it was simply a coincidence. Most do agree, however, that the property is haunted and only a few brave souls will step inside. Those that have claim that they have constantly felt like they're being watched. Coming in at number 3, we have Dracula's Castle. Dracula. No. So Bran's Castle, better known as Dracula's Castle, is a stately 13th century castle linked to the dark legend of Dracula because of its Transylvania location, or modern day Romania. The famous literary vampire aside, the castle was once home to the extra ghoulish Vlad the Impaler, thought to be one of the worst and most evil tyrants to ever live. Vlad the Impaler was alive until 1477, and in his 50-ish years on Earth, he caused literal hell. Many suspected that he himself was a vampire because of the ghoulish way that he would kill people. It is a popular legend that the vampire, or indeed the ghost of Vlad, haunt the castle today. Honestly, how terrifying. Coming in at number 2, we have Fyvie Castle in Scotland. I love Scotland. You will find plenty of ghost stories in Scotland, especially in Scottish castles. A little north of Aberdeen, you will find the breathtaking Fyvie Castle. Fyvie is haunted by the ghost of poor Lilias Drummond, who died of both an empty stomach and an empty heart. It seems that she had an abusive husband who would beat her, and in the end it is said that he locked her in a room and starved her to death in 1601. It seems that Lilias's ghost has haunted the castle ever since, and strangely appears as a green spectre. The night her husband took a new wife, she carved her name in the stone wall of her husband's bedchamber. Apparently this carving can still be seen there today. It seems that her spirit shows up when bad things are about to happen to the castle's owners or to the area surrounding the castle. Now, aside from her mournful spirit, it is also said that the castle is haunted by a trumpeter whose instrument can be heard when death is nearby. Usually I'm like, bring on the trumpets, but not when they signal death. Finally, coming into number 1 of the scariest, most haunted castles in the world, we have Leap Castle in Ireland. Leap Castle is often hailed as one of the most haunted castles in the entire world. The castle in County Offaly dates back to the 1200s and today is in partial ruin. The castle was owned by the O'Carrolls clan, but it was under constant siege. On one occasion, a priest was killed in a brawl between warring clans. Now sadly, his death took place in what is now known as the Bloody Chapel. The priest is said to haunt the chapel today and is pretty unhappy about his death, which, you know, fair. The story of the priest is one of the more notable deaths, but plenty of blood has been shed in the castle at the hands of the attackers and the O'Carrolls. The O'Carrolls were said to have been brutish back in the day, and they were thought to have captured and raped a woman who fell pregnant. When the woman birthed her child, unfortunately, the infant was killed by her captors. It is said that now her angry spirit haunts the castle, wielding a knife ready to stab in a fit of revenge. The worst spirit of all, though, is the spirit of something that locals call it. It is around the size of a sheep and is an unidentified animal, and it has a decaying face. Before you even see it, you will smell it. It comes with a waft of rotting flesh and sulfur, which, ugh. Ghosts, one thing. Ghosts that smell, a whole different ballgame.
Starting off this countdown, we have the diseased Barbies. Posted on Reddit by the user Anitra Rash, she shares a photo of some horrifying dolls found in an abandoned house. The dolls are of the lovers Barbie and Ken, except the poor couple are covered in mold. It makes them look pretty terrifying. They could use a little TLC. Barbie is seen wearing a white nightgown and her poor face is covered in mold, making her almost unrecognizable. Then you have Ken, who is shirtless and pantless, and unfortunately both his legs are covered in mold. But his ripped bod remains spotless. Even the mold is intimidated by his rock hard abs. But honestly, the two look terrifying, like something you would see creepy possessed girls playing with in horror movies. In our 9th spot, we have the Hidden Room. This story was posted on Reddit by the user mdicky3. About 2 years ago, his grandparents bought an old mansion. When he arrived there for the first time, he did what anyone else would do and went exploring. Specifically, he wanted to find secret passageways. Honestly, sounds like me. I would love to go on an adventure trying to find secret passageways. Well, he was upstairs checking out an old bookcase built into a wall when he noticed a small latch on the bookcase. Of course, when he pulled on the latch, it opened up to reveal a hidden room. Classic, something right out of a Scooby-Doo cartoon. In this space, they found a tiny room with a cot, some clothes, and some dishes. He told his parents what he found, but they assumed it was just an old servant's quarters. Well, they were wrong. Turns out that someone had actually been living in the house and tried to break back in that night. Ever heard of squatters' rights? It probably technically is his property now, depends on how long he was in that room for. In our 8th spot, we have Lennox Castle. The Lennox Castle, located in Scotland, was built in 1812 for John Lennox Kincaid, the distant relative of some well-known Earls of Lennox. It's said that this mansion, often referred to as a castle, was his home for quite some time. Then in 1927, it was converted into an asylum for the mentally ill. A couple years later, during World War II, it was turned into a hospital. As a result, the mentally ill patients were transferred to another area in the building. But this didn't go too well. Apparently, there would be a lot of fights between patients. In fact, during one fight, a lot of the staff and patients ran from the hospital. The patients that didn't escape were then locked inside. The hospital was vacated by the 1980s, and in 2002 it was abandoned completely. Now it's said that if you enter the mansion and go to the area where the patients were kept, you'll be able to see blood and scratch marks all along the walls from them fighting and trying to escape. Coming in at number 7, we have the creepy statues. Posted on Reddit by the user sketch_crush, they described a massive mansion that was for sale in their area. Apparently it was built about 100 years ago and the original owner killed himself in it. Now it's believed to be haunted by his soul. After that incident, the mansion was vacant for years. Finally, it's back on the market. Now, what's creepy about this mansion, besides its already terrifying history, is the fact that there are large amounts of creepy statues and stone carvings in and around the house. Like on the upper half of the mansion, a window is replaced by a statue of a creepy old man in a cloak. That just makes the home that much more terrifying. But if it hasn't sold already, go check it out and you can buy it. It could be yours. Moving on to number 6, we have the Witch's Mansion. Seth Lawless, photographer and explorer, went on a trip exploring a bunch of supposedly haunted abandoned mansions. One he came across was this one in Milan, Ohio. He claims that this mansion is where local witches would practice their craft. To make things creepier, it's said that the original owner of the mansion, a witch herself, was buried right underneath the front porch. First off, whenever I hear the word witch, I think of a green-skinned old lady with a black hat and a broomstick. Am I the only one? But no, not all witches are evil, so maybe it was a friendly witch casting nice spells, not one that on the strike of midnight will rise up out of her grave from under the porch. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Hooley Mansion. This is another mansion that was explored by Seth Lawless. This mansion, located in Texas, used to be a bed and breakfast in the 70s, but it's also apparently where numerous strange deaths have occurred. Now, here's the thing. If you Google this mansion, nothing turns up. We don't know the location of this house or anything. The only photos of it are the ones that Lawless has taken. Either he made up the name and story, or the identity and real name of the house are kept a secret to prevent looters and vandals. But it's more fun to think that it's a real haunted house where you'll die if you stay the night. Coming in at number 4, we have the Locked Away Mansion. A pair of urban explorers were out touring an abandoned mansion when they came across something very, very strange and creepy. All of the bedroom doors locked from the outside, and the windows were bolted from the outside. So if someone wanted to, they could lock you in that room and you would have no way to escape. Not only that, but some of the doors had deep scratches on it, as if someone was clawing at the door trying to escape. So I don't know what went on in that house. I lied, I do. It's probably someone would lock their victims in the rooms and then torture them. Moving on to number 3, we have the crawl space. Upon moving into a new mansion with her kids, they found a crawl space in one of the bedrooms. But that's not the scary thing. In the crawl space, they found a box containing old Ken dolls. But these Ken dolls had their hands melted together and razor blades sticking out of their arms. So either the previous family had a child who is growing up to be a killer, or some sicko made these dolls for kids to play with. Or it's Sid's house from Toy Story. Either way, I don't want to meet the person that made those dolls. In our second spot, we have Chateau Miranda. This mansion was built in 1866 for the family Lyda Kirk Beaufort. They lived at this home until World War II. Then it housed sick and orphaned children until 1980, which is when it became abandoned. According to local urban explorers, they found a creepy room in the mansion filled with old and dirty children's toys, like dolls, balls, and even a jack-in-the-box that was rusty but still worked. In one of the hallways, there was also an abandoned tricycle right smack in the middle of it. Yeah, that's a sure sign to leave the mansion. We don't need no shining jigsaw stuff going down with that thing. Then it said that the landlord burnt down the mansion in 2017. Why? Probably because it was haunted. And in our number 1 spot, we have Cheonei No 81. Completed in 1910, the Cheonei No 81 mansion was originally built as a church for British residents in Beijing. Then in 1949, it was home to a high-ranked official and his wife. But he ended up leaving her and fleeing to Taiwan. As a result, the grief-struck woman hung herself from the rafters of the mansion. Now it's believed that her spirit haunts the abandoned home. Apparently, some people moved into the house a while later and then fled a few days later, terrified. There have also been stories of unexplainable disappearances connected to the house. Like the time 3 construction workers working on a nearby house got drunk and decided to break into the mansion. They were never seen or heard from again. It's also said that during summers, it's always shockingly cold around the mansion. Starting off this countdown, we have the Den of Snakes. Some abandoned locations are more dangerous than others. You really don't know what you're getting into when you enter them. Maybe the floors will just give in under your feet. Or in this case, maybe you'll be greeted by some slithery friends. A group of urban explorers visited an abandoned mansion in their town, and when they got inside, they found a family of snakes living underneath the couch. Even if they were harmless, I don't want those things lurking anywhere near me, no thank you. But it could have been worse. Could have been a den of poisonous snakes. Moving on at number 9, we have the Somewhere House. A pretty famous abandoned home for urban explorers is called the Somewhere House. It was named by the person who discovered it. Obviously, he didn't want to expose the location of the house, so he just titled it Somewhere. Now it's been named the Mid-Century Time Capsule House, because if you enter this house, you feel like you've been transported back in time to the 1960s and 70s. The style and decor of the house reflects those time periods. So back in 2015, the urban explorer Freaktography was searching this house when he came across a safe in one of the rooms. Hoping to find money or valuables, he opened it up. But what he found scared the crap out of him. In the safe was a note that read, "Danger, MK1 hand grenade inside. This is not a joke. Bob Jr." And sure enough, the grenade was still there. The explorer then carefully closed the lid and got the heck out of there. Definitely don't want to risk setting that baby off. I just want to know why there was a grenade in the safe in the first place, and who is Bob Jr.? In our 8th spot, we have the Well. Some fancy mansions have a full bar in their basements. Others have a nice home movie theater. But this old abandoned house had something quite different in their basement. A well. Now, in pre-1940 homes, you may find this to be a thing, but there was something off about this well. For starters, the well was blocked off by a trap door, as if someone was thrown down there and then the well was sealed off so they couldn't get out, or so that visitors couldn't hear their screams for help. Or it was blocked off so that Pennywise can't crawl back out of there. In our 7th spot, we have The Spirit Lives. Back in 2015, YouTuber and urban explorer Freaktography was exploring abandoned homes in Ontario. While in southwestern Ontario, he found a mansion with some very unsettling things. So in this house, he found an old box with the words "The Spirit Lives" written on it. Inside of it were dozens of photos of an old dead woman lying in her casket. Now, I know that back in the day it was a tradition to send loved ones photos of the dead in their caskets if they couldn't attend the funeral, but those photos are just so unnerving. Also in the box were condolence cards and programs from the funeral service. I mean, what makes it so creepy is how the box was labeled "The Spirit Lives." Makes it seem like if you open this box, then her soul is just going to escape. Making our way down the list, number 6, we have the Mannequin. So not all abandoned places are going to be terrifying, but some people, with nothing else better to do, get a little creative and have a little fun at these abandoned locations. And by this, I mean purposely setting up the house to terrify its next visitors. So in one abandoned mansion, an explorer found a mannequin hanging from the ceiling by a rope around its neck. Nearby was a ladder lying on the ground, making it look like the dirty old mannequin committed suicide. Yeah, that's enough to freak anyone out. Pretty creative though, I'm not gonna lie. Mannequins are creepy enough on their own, but this person just turned the creep factor to the extreme. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the tiger. A man in Houston went inside an abandoned home when he came across a frickin' tiger. This is reminding me of that scene from The Hangover. Apparently this guy wandered into the house to smoke some weed, but upon doing so, he found a tiger in the garage. When he called the police had to make sure that the dude wasn't just hallucinating from being high as a kite. But he was right, there was a tiger in the garage along with several packages of meat. Maybe Joe was just chilling out there with a tiger for a few days. Well, police ended up tranquilizing the tiger and took it to an animal shelter. They still don't know whose tiger it is and what it was doing in an abandoned house in the first place. Coming in at number 4, we have the bunker. If you were able to design your own mansion, what would you want it to have? Maybe an indoor swimming pool or a slide from the top floor to the main floor? I personally would want a bunch of secret rooms and passageways. That would be so cool. Now I ask because this next abandoned mansion had a secret bunker in the basement. Inside they found a supply of food, water, and equipment. But it looked as if whoever was there left in a hurry and just grabbed as much supplies as they could. Why did they have to flee? What happened to them? And where did they disappear to? Someone answer my questions. In our 3rd spot, we have these skeletons. There's a saying about people having skeletons in their closet, but of course this is just an idiom, meaning maybe they've done something bad in their past that they are ashamed of and keep hidden from others. But in this next case, this abandoned mansion literally had skeletons in its closet. So upstairs in the master bedroom, an urban explorer came across a chest in the closet. Thinking it's like a pirate treasure chest, he opened it, only to find a large assortment of bones. But there wasn't just one chest, there were multiple, all filled with bones. Thinking that the previous owner was some sort of serial killer, he fled the scene of the crime. A couple days later, he returned to the same spot with a group of his friends, but this time the boxes of bones were gone. Okay, that's really creepy. Like, whose bones are those? Are they human or are they animal bones? And where did they disappear to? In our 2nd spot, we have the Resident. A group of urban explorers decided to go check out an abandoned mansion in their town. The mansion was badly vandalized and as creepy as they expected it to be. However, after looking around the house for quite some time, they saw someone run by one of the doors. Thinking that someone was living in the old abandoned mansion, they fled. However, when reviewing some photos and videos that they took of the mansion, they realized that the person living there wasn't alive. No, it was a ghost. In one of the photos you could see a dark figure lurking at that same doorway. After seeing that, they all agreed to never go back to that mansion ever again. It's not worth pissing off a ghost and getting possessed by it. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Doctor's Mansion. Brian Sansevero, urban explorer and photographer, ended up finding an abandoned mansion that once belonged to a wealthy doctor. But this doctor didn't work at a hospital. No, he worked out of his house. In fact, sections of his house were converted into a waiting room, examination room, and procedure room for his patients, meaning people probably ended up dying in his very own home. That's not even the creepy part. When you first walked into the house, you are greeted by a skinned wolf carpet. Then in the medical rooms there are bottles of mysterious liquids, old medicine, and creepy medical tools. I mean, the home is quite beautiful, minus the creepy hospital rooms it has. Starting off this countdown, we have Lucy Hale. Now, this pretty little liar has experienced numerous paranormal occurrences in her home. Although she claims that nothing big has occurred, it's the little unexplained events that freak her out. Lucy claims that one time at 1 a.m. her coffee maker turned on by itself. I mean, hey, maybe the ghost just wanted a cup of joe. She also says that doors close by themselves and her dog barks unexplainably at random things. She also says that something will continuously trigger her motion detector without there being anything in sight. So she's convinced that her house is haunted. Next up at number 9, we have Gigi Hadid. Now this model has claimed that spooky things would happen in her childhood home. When she was younger, she lived in a really old house, and her room was in the attic. Apparently, Gigi would hear weird noises coming from her closet. Her dad said that there was once an old lady that lived in the house. So Gigi and her sister thought that they were communicating with this old lady. Then she also said that every year she would have the same reoccurring dream. The dream would take place in her house, but the lighting would be more dark and eerie and it would be covered in fog. Then she said that people in suits with weird shaped heads would walk down the stairs towards her. I think we need a dream expert to analyze this. In our 8th spot, we have the mansion. This next mansion was literally named The Mansion. How creative. And what's with celebrities naming their homes? Well, anyways, this home is owned by music producer Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin uses his home as a recording studio, and bands like Red Hot Chili Peppers and Linkin Park have recorded there. However, it is haunted. Hey, maybe the ghost just likes music. So, rumor has it that in 1918, one of the previous owners pushed his lover off of the balcony. Artists that have stayed over at the mansion have reported witnessing a bunch of scary activities. Some have seen orbs, others have seen doors opening and closing by themselves, and others have heard whispering in the walls. Dang, those ghosts are lucky. They get to hear songs before they're even released to the public. Coming in at number 7, we have the Pickfair Mansion. Back in the 1920s, Mary Pickford was a well-known silent film actress. Her and her husband Douglas Fairbanks were an iconic couple. Now, they purchased a 22-room mansion which they named the Pickfair. This mansion is currently on sale for $60 million. So, if you have that kind of money and don't mind rooming with a ghost, then this mansion is for you. So apparently a spirit of a servant roams this property. It has been reportedly seen on several occasions by different individuals. Now in 1936 the couple divorced and Mary kept the estate and shared it with her new husband Charles Rogers. When Mary passed away, Rogers was visited by a woman in a long white gown. He claimed that this was Mary herself visiting him. When the mansion was resold, the spirit sightings increased. People saw the woman in the white gown along with a male entity in the front hallway. They also would see an apparition of a figure holding sheet music. Now, this home was demolished and a new home was built on top. Since the demolition, the sightings have apparently stopped. Honestly, I'm sure there are some people that wouldn't mind having ghosts as roommates. They wouldn't eat your food and they wouldn't be too noisy. Up next at number 6, we have the Jenner Mansion. Apparently, Kendall Jenner is convinced that her mother's mansion is haunted. She explains that Kylie and herself would hear footsteps on the roof when no one was home. Honestly, it would not surprise me if it was just the paparazzi. She also claims that Kylie's shower would turn on by itself. Now, Kendall also admitted that her family would toy around with an Ouija board. One day, they got in contact with a spirit that answered all of their questions accurately. Although Chris does not believe this, Kendall is completely convinced a ghost lurks around her mother's house. Honestly, at least this ghost sounds harmless. From what I gathered, it likes to shower and be clean and likes to do a little tap dancing on the roof. Nothing to worry about. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Adele's mansion. Now, rumor has it, yes that's a pun, that Adele lived in a haunted house. The mansion was worth $11 million and was located in Sussex, England. Although Adele has not witnessed turning tables, she has witnessed other creepy occurrences. Adele said that she used to hear strange, unexplainable noises. She even said that objects around her house would fall down. As a result, she always felt uneasy and even hired a nighttime bodyguard and upped her security system. Now, Adele only lived there for 2 years before moving out. Before Adele lived there, it was a convent with its own chapel. If Adele lived there longer, maybe the ghost would have said hello from the other side. I don't apologize for all those Adele song puns. Comment down below if you caught them all. Up next at number 4, we have Matthew McConaughey. Alright, Matthew McConaughey. So during his interview with Jennifer Garner for the movie Ghosts of Girlfriends Past, Matthew told the interviewer all about his haunted home. Now, Matthew claimed that his home was haunted by a woman named Madame Blue. He claims that she didn't seem like a happy or friendly spirit. But Matthew stood his ground and told her, "You can move around all you want, but I'm not going anywhere." Okay, he's pretty brave. Now, every time that Matthew had a guest over, they too would say that they thought they saw or felt this woman. Now, apparently one day Matthew heard a noise coming from a room and he went to investigate without any clothes on. Since that day, the ghost has made peace with Matthew and they get along. So maybe that's the new way to ward off ghosts. In our third spot, we have Allison Hannigan. This How I Met Your Mother star claims that her LA home is haunted by a male ghost. Her and her friends have both seen this ghost multiple times. The first instance was when Allison's friends saw the ghost and said, "I don't mean to alarm you, but I just saw a man follow us out of the house." I love how she said, "I don't mean to alarm you." Like, of course it's going to. But Allison believes that it is a pleasant ghost. She claims that it's not somebody that died in the home because there's a law in LA that when you buy a house, if somebody died, then they have to disclose that to you. Allison also shared that one night she saw the silhouette of the man standing in her bathroom doorway. She thought that it was her husband, but turns out he was asleep beside her. Allison is not afraid of this ghost at all. In fact, she really wants to learn its name. She has stated that she wants to put a chalkboard in the area that they see him the most to see if he'll write down his name. Sounds like a good plan, until he writes down something creepy. Coming in at number 2, we have the Allure house. Now, this house was said to be owned by Madame Allure. She tortured and murdered endless slaves in her mansion. It is said that one night a fire occurred in the mansion. When help arrived, they found several tortured individuals in her house. Madame fled and was never seen again. Now, this house was once owned by America's own national treasure, Nicolas Cage. He claimed that while others have a beachfront property, he has a ghost front property. Apparently, it is haunted by several of the tortured individuals that once lived there. But apparently Cage loved living there. He even said that one of his greatest memories from when he was a kid was from the haunted mansion at Anaheim in New Orleans Square. He then felt that living there was fulfilling his childhood fantasy. And in our number 1 spot, we have Loretta Lynn. Loretta Lynn is an American country music legend with multiple hit songs. Now, her mansion, located in Hurricane Mills, Tennessee, is said to be haunted by multiple ghosts. Now, Loretta herself has even claimed that she has some sort of psychic abilities and can see ghosts. So in her home, she has heard weird noises and has seen apparitions. Even her daughters have seen a ghost of a Confederate soldier in her home. After doing research, Lynn discovered that her home used to be the site of a Civil War battle. It is also said that 19 soldiers are buried on the grounds. Now, Lynn claims to have seen a young woman weeping on her property. She believes that this is the ghost of Beulah Anderson, who lost her baby. Now, to go even further, Lynn has even conducted seances in her home. One time, she got in contact with a spirit named Anderson. Anderson got angry and started shaking the table before it broke from being slammed to the floor. Apparently, James Anderson was one of the original owners of the home.